you feel only big companies care about? Or is it something that you think auditors used to give people headaches? Which of these three applies to you when you hear the word ISO standard? I'm not getting feedback, please. We can do better. Thank you for your response, Timon Blaze. A checklist that must meet up to standard. Yes, standard is the word because standard, it's ISO itself is the standard. So without wasting much time, let me go straight to introduce the facilitator of today's session in person of, I know some people might have known him prior to this session, to this moment. We know him as Cyber Cadabra, and maybe he will be the one to do a formal explanation of that nickname, but his real name, his legal name is Kehinde Ologun. So let me give you a brief run through about who Kehinde Ologun is. Kehinde Ologun, also known as Cyber Cadabra, is a senior consultant in audit, risk, and compliance at Safe Working, and is an experienced IT governance, risk, and compliance professional. He specializes in auditing and implementing management systems, cybersecurity frameworks, cloud security controls, enterprise risk management, and regulatory assessment, which includes but not limited to NDPR, that's the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, the PCI DSS, as Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, the CBN Security Assessment, and so on and so forth. Kehinde Ologun is skilled in applying best practices standards such as ISO 27001, ISO 27017, ISO 27032, ISO 22301, and many more standards that has to do with ISO. He has also trained and mentored thousands through workshops like this, training sessions, certification, and community initiatives. He has worked through Nigeria, the whole of Nigeria for a fact, Sub-Saharan Africa, I know that for a truth, the UK, and North America. And his work has majorly been supporting organizations to achieving strategic objective that has to do with ISO and standardization. Before I go, I won't fail to mention that Kehinde Ologun is also a certified trainer for multiple cybersecurity and audit certification. He is currently an active member of ISC Square, FinTech NGR, Isaka, Session, and AI in Nigeria. Please assist me with your reaction to give Kehinde Ologun a round of applause. Because trust me, it is not something very easy to gather all of these things together, and to have all of this in one person, it's a privilege. So I will leave the floor for Kehinde Ologun to come in to brandish to us what he has. I mean, what we are all anticipating for. That is to understand the concept of ISO standards and how to implement them. So, Kehinde, you are welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Olaide. Please, everyone, confirm you can hear me by giving me some reactions. Okay, great, great, great. Thank you for the introduction, Olaide, once more. I think in my last training, that's the one we did in the last, because we had that training June, I think the last Saturday of June, and we thought about having these free trainings every month. I would have had this training, that's the last Saturday of July, but I went to audit a company in Nairobi and in Ghana. So they delayed my flights and I was not able to come into Nigeria on Saturday. So that's why we had to move the training up to today, which is August. So I also mentioned in the last training that we had, I talked about how Cybercadabra came up, but I'm still going to talk about it again. Right. So coming into the field of cybersecurity, I know that it can be tiring and it can be confusing in the sense that cybersecurity has lots of domains. And if you are not able to streamline those domains to some various section and you're able to pick which part of cybersecurity you want to belong to, you get to see that you just get confused. You'll be doing everything. And when I started up cybersecurity also, I was doing everything the way some newbies will also want to do everything. I was writing this exam, going for this training because in as much as I have a mentor, but I was still trying to test the waters. So that understanding made me want to give back to people and ensure that people gain clarity, right? And as I mentioned also in the last training I did, that in our own part of the world and in some other parts of the world, if the major problem every youth has is having understanding of the career paths, the careers that they can do. If before we are done with school or college, we are able to identify which career path we want to choose, we see that a lot of people will not have problem when it comes to career mapping and career progression, right? So I was listening to a podcast and the man was talking about Abacadabra. And if you grew up watching some of these cartoons that we watched, I was looking at a kid watch one yesterday, that's Tom and Jerry, and it was not even fascinating anymore. And I was telling my friend that it's like our problems are becoming too much, that these cartoons are not funny anymore. So growing up, if you watch some of those cartoons, you will see, you will hear words, you will remember words like open sesame, abacadabra, like, and we hear them, we go outside, we want to do a magic, we want to point around to something, and that thing we maybe wake up or we just try to do one of those things. So the guy was defining what abacadabra means. It means abba and cadabra, which means to give life, to give meaning to something. And if you also follow some of those cartoons, you will see that open sesame, abacadabra, they use them to maybe to make a magic, to make something come to life. So I thought about it. I'm like, abacadabra, cybercadabra. Let me give life to cybersecurity. Let me help people to be able to navigate their career paths in cybersecurity, right? Whatever I can do to support people's growth, right, in cybersecurity. Also in the last training, I mentioned that there is a free Huawei training and certification. I have gained a lot with that training. I did that training, I think, in my ND2 back then in school. So I've gained a lot. People that registered for that training, you are going to see me for the next 1 week. Next week, Monday to Friday, I'll be taking you on network security concepts, and we'll delve into ISO also and standards, because there are some critical standards that are used in China and other countries that are heavy on the usage of Huawei products. Right. So once more, Olaide, thank you for the introduction, and also thank you for everyone that took their time to also join this training, wherever you are joining from. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We had various countries registered and various people registered, right? So this training is helping people to understand what ISO standards are, and you are going to see a different view of what ISO standards are, because you are going to have an understanding of the different things that you do every day of your life, the things you do that you do not even know that they follow standards. You just do them, but you get to see them today because I've opened your eyes to some of those things. So we are going to look at why this training matters, why this training that we are currently looking at, why it is important. We are going to look at what ISO is. We'll look at why you should care as a person, whether you are in GRC or any other domain, whether you are not even in cybersecurity, ISO standard is not cybersecurity standard, right? So why you should care about ISO standard as an individual, as a business. You're also going to see popular ISO standards that we have, and you understand the difference between requirements and guidelines. I'll also take you through structure, how ISO standards are structured. I'll take you through how to implement ISO standards. We are also going to see common myths about ISO, what people think about ISO. I saw that Olaide asked the question. He asked the question that when you hear ISO standard, what comes to mind? Someone said a checklist that must meet up to standard. Well, when we get to common myths about ISO, we'll talk about that, whether it's a checklist that you must meet, that must meet a standard. Lucy mentioned something that is very, very fantastic. Lucy said ISO standards refer to requirements that should be met, and not only by small companies, but every organization. Yes, very true. We'll get there also, and then we'll dive into that. And then we're also going to see quick tips for beginners to pursue their career in GRC, and to also understand more how to implement ISO standards. And then if you have questions, we'll take those questions and we'll take it from there. So if you do not, if you have not watched the first free training that we did, and that was in June. If you have not watched that training, please go and watch that training. That training, we were able to describe the different domains in cybersecurity. For those that are confused, the domain they want to belong to, we're able to define the different domains in cybersecurity, and then we are able to talk about what governance risk and compliance is as a whole. So that's a very, very fantastic training, and it's available on my YouTube page. You can go and watch it, and then it will also complement what you are going to learn today. So without wasting so much time, let's just dive straight into why this training matters, why it is important that we have this training, right? If you are a believer like me, I believe in God. I believe you are a supernatural being. In fact, when I traveled and I was in the plane, I looked at, because I love to sit at the window side whenever I'm traveling. So I was looking at the window, and I am looking at the awesomeness of God. And why will someone say there is no God? Because something can move and stay on air. Like, I was just looking at a lot of things, right? So because I believe in God, and God is also the God of standard. He also has his own standards. If you're a Christian, our Bible is our standard. If you are a Muslim, the Quran is your standard, and whatever religion. So there are standards in everything that we do, right? It is the same standard that made us to understand that our cars, right, the steering to our cars are on the left-hand side in our own country. In Nairobi, it was on the right-hand side. It's on the right-hand side, rather. So the way we drive on the left, they drive on the right. And if I drive in Nigeria, when you get to somewhere like Nairobi, because they still copy most of the Western culture, and UK, you need to relearn. Else, my friend that I met there was telling me that sometimes you see some accidents on the road, because if you just coming from countries like Nigeria, you cannot just jump straight into driving. You need to learn. You may think you can do it, but you don't want to do it. You just want to relearn also before you can drive. So these are standards, right? And ISO standards are rules that are agreed by experts. We are still going to see more of that. People coming together to ensure that things work. But now let's leave ISO. There are other standards, other things that happen that are even governed by, not even ISO, that are governed by other institutions like IEEE, like institutions around hospitality, like institutions around food consumption, like the way we have NAFDAC in Nigeria, and then global food institutions, right? Now let's start with IEEE. If you studied electrical engineering in school, IEEE is International Electrical Electronics Engineering Committee. So there are committees that manage electrical requirements, fittings, electrical consumption, ratings, and what have you, and a lot of other things around networking also, right? Like our Wi-Fi protocol is also an IEEE standard. Now, if you look at the picture on the left here, we have the wall sockets and the wall brackets. If you have a wall socket and a wall bracket, if your wall bracket gets bad, right, the socket is still good. Maybe because the hole on the wall is slack, and then maybe you want to fix that wall bracket, you want to fasten into the wall, and that wall bracket gets broken. Do you go to get a new socket and a new wall bracket? No. You only go to the market to get a wall bracket because you know you still have an existing socket. How is that possible? There is a standard that has designed and defined the size of wall brackets, the size of wall sockets, whether it's a dual socket, whether it's a single phase socket. There are standards that have defined that. So you do not need to go to the market with that same socket to say, oh, you want to go and buy a wall bracket. You can just go to the market and get a wall bracket. And then you know that wall bracket is going to work for your socket. There is a standard that has designed that. Now let's go to traffic lights. Anywhere you go to in the world, red means stop. It's a standard. You are not going to get to any country. If you find yourself in any country where green means stop, it means you are asleep and it means you are dreaming. So you may need to wake up. Right. So anywhere in Nigeria, in the UK, in the UAE, anywhere you find yourself, red means stop. Yellow is charging you to get ready, right? And green means go. So now imagine that every city now decides to use their own color code. For instance, if I get to the UK, yellow means go in the UK, green means stop, and red means I'm charging you to get ready to move. You know the amount of chaos that we are going to have, because it is going to distort, people's understanding, right? So that is a standard also that you see. It's a global standard. So standards can be global. Sometimes standards can be within a particular jurisdiction, and then standards can cross jurisdictions also, right? So the reason why I'm using some of these analogies to sharpen our mind and get us ready for what ISO really is, right? So we have ATM machines also. Some years ago, you cannot use, let me use Nigeria as a case study. You cannot use Zenith Bank ATM card in Access Bank ATM machine. You cannot. So there was a routing, there was a standard that was designed to ensure that there's a routing between each banks, and that's where NIPS came in. There's a routing between each banks to ensure that even if you have a UBA card, you can use that UBA card on a Zenith ATM machine. And beyond that routing, right, there are standards also that has designed the size of each card that you use. And that is why if you have a dollar card and you leave Nigeria to the UK, the same size of your dollar card is the same size of the ATM machine that you are going to see in the UK, and it is going to accept it. Now let's imagine that we design different ATM cards in different jurisdictions. So that means even if I have a dollar card here in Nigeria, by the time I get to the UK, it is useless because it cannot go into the machine. Now there's a standard, ISO 8583 designs that, and other relevant standards also in respect to financial requirements. That's a standard. Now let's go to shipping containers. All containers have the same dimension globally. The same dimension, they have standard size, and that is why a ship can move containers from another country, in fact from another continent into another continent, and then they can move that container into another ship because of the size of that container. And that is why you will see that some truck companies also that moves containers already understands, they know the sizes of those containers. These things are managed by standard. Not any body cannot just wake up tomorrow and say, I want to start, building containers and standard containers that will be used to ship maybe goods from one country or from one continent to another, and then you want to go against the size. Nobody's going to do business with you. Why? Because there's a standard that defines that. Now let's go to legal requirements. If you go to hotels or if you go to some recreational centers, you will see things like vehicles and contents left here. Vehicles and contents are left here entirely at owner's risk, or cars are parked at owner's risk. There's a standard that defines that. Because if that signage is not outside of your gates in your hospital, or especially in recreational centers and hotels, hospitality centers like that, and my car gets stolen, you are in trouble automatically. But this is for the business to, any legal, anything that they can be liable of, right? Anything that can cause issue to them based on the vehicle you've parked, or maybe other contents that you drop there. Because if you don't want to be liable, right, you have things like that. You will go to some hotels, you will see map. It's not like they just want to have a map in the hotel, or they want to use it as aesthetics. These things are standards, because there are people that comes to review, especially for these big hotels. There are people that comes to review the environment, and they can find them up to 10, 20, sometimes 100 million naira, sometimes in dollars, because they do not go through standards. Now let's go to food recipe. I was speaking with a friend of mine a few days ago, and she's a food scientist, and she mentioned something around this, and she said, if you open multiple outlets, your food recipe must be the same across all outlets. And that makes sense to me. If you go to Chicken Republic here, the same way they make their chicken, the same way they shout nice, nice, the same way they package their outlets in terms of building, also not even food recipe in some cases, in terms of the building structure and the resemblance of the buildings. You will see this also applicable in banks. They are not doing these things for aesthetics. There are standards that are designed that you need to follow a particular model, a particular protocol, right? So there are standard operating procedures for them to cook their food recipe. Your food must not taste entirely different across all your outlets. And this also help them to, let's say they want to monitor, maybe there is food poisoning. It is easy for them to follow through and be able to identify what actually caused that food poisoning, up to the amount of ingredient they put, to the salt, to the calculation, the teaspoon, and every other thing. There are standards that guide these things. So they are not aesthetics. Let me sharpen our minds more before we go into what ISO standards are. Right. So QR codes. Whether you want to scan a QR code in a restaurant, whether you want to scan a QR code on your television. For instance, sometimes when I want to connect to my Netflix, I can pick up my phone and scan via my television. Sometimes I can even scan my QR code on a flyer, right? Or I can scan a QR code anywhere. Now, there is a standard, there is an encoding format that has been stated. There's a standard. So if anybody is designing a phone, if you are building a phone, now there's an encoding format that you must follow, that your camera must follow. If that encoding format, if your camera did not follow that encoding format, you will not be able to capture QR codes. These are standards. Wi-Fi also. Sometimes I can be stranded. For instance, when I'm going to other countries, I can be stranded at the airport, and you may need to connect to other Wi-Fis, right? Maybe you are at the restaurant, or maybe you went to your friend's place and you need to use their internet. Your phone can connect. You do not need to worry whether it is going to connect or not. Why? Because there's a standard, and I mentioned that IEEE 8002.11. It's a standard that guides Wi-Fi requirements, that makes all devices speak the same language. So whether it's a router, whether it's a switch, whether it's an orb, whatever you have, right? As long as it can broadcast, it's an access point, the device is going to connect to it. Why? Because there are standards that guides those devices. Now let's go to hospitality requirements. whilst this may necessarily not be a countrywide standard, but it is understood globally that in some hotels, you cannot be more than 2 adults in a room. And I was asking somebody one day that, why is it that you people don't allow more than 2 adults? And the person said something very funny, but it makes a lot of sense. The person said 2 adults can fight themselves in the room, but if there are 3, 2 adults can gang up and kill the other adults. And I'm like, do you understand? So 2 adults can go with a kid, can go with children, but some hotels will never allow you go into the hotel if you are more than 2 adults. Because when there's an issue, right, and we see a lot of hotels doing it, that we can be more than 2, 3, you can be more than 2, 3, 4 in the hotel, right? But multiples of 2, right? So, but if you are more than 2, let's say 3, and something happens, one of them dies, that hotel is in trouble because they are going to lock down that hotel for a long time. These are standards. Also, I used to ask myself growing up, especially when I pass some, beautiful houses and, houses that belongs to rich man, and maybe companies, especially companies. You see that companies will have on their gates things around, you are being recorded, surveillance is on guard, things around, there is a dog on guard. And growing up, I used to think, why are you telling them there is a dog on guard? Let them come inside now, let the dog bite them. Let the person you did not invite come inside and let the dog bite them. Do you understand? But growing up, but when I got into the space, in the cybersecurity space, I got to understand that it's a critical requirement. If I come to your company and there are no signage that says, no physical signage, no visible signage that says CCTV is on guard, there's 24-hour surveillance. If you record me, it means you are recording me without my consent, and there are privacy requirements. I can sue your company. And I know of a company that just got what's it called, sanctioned. They paid 10 million naira not long ago in this country, in Nigeria, because of that signage. Because of that signage. Or if someone comes to your environment and that person got beaten and you have no signage that says there's dog on guard, you're also in trouble. These are requirements. Now let's go to paper size. A4 paper in Nigeria is A4 paper in the UK, is A4 paper in India, is A4 paper in Ghana, is A4 paper anywhere, right? These are standards also. There are standards that are designed that A4 paper, A3 paper, whatever size that you are going for is the same across board, any jurisdiction and wherever you go to. Now imagine that A4 paper in UK is times 3 the A4 paper in Nigeria, and then one of us on the call gets to the UK and you tell the person to print for you, please can you print on A4 paper my CV, and that person prints your CV and the CV is very big that it cannot even enter into your folder. That's a big issue, right? So that's a standard also. Mobile device. Now, some time ago, if you have an IBM device, the peripheral for that IBM device, let's say your mouse, the way we have external mouse, external keyboards, for that IBM device, we never work for a Microsoft device, never. They don't work, right? So it means back then, if you have Samsung Type-C charger, the Samsung Type-C charger will not work for any Apple device that is in a Type-C port. These are the issues. Now there are standards, right? Protocols like your ISO ISO models, right? In your networking protocols that has routed how these things now work. And that is why I can just go to the market and buy any Type-C code, because the person designing that Type-C code understands that there is a standard that needs to be followed to work with every device. I can go to the market and buy any iPhone code, right? I can use my Samsung phone to connect to Apple AirPod. I can use my Apple phone device to connect to an Oraimo AirPod. Why? There are standards that has routed this thing to ensure they work. Right. So this is to sharpen our mind and tell us everything you do on a daily basis, they are standard. Let me leave you with this last example. For electrical fittings, usually we have 3 wires. Most of the time, 3 wires inside, like three copper wires inside of a branded wire. So we have maybe we always have red, black, and maybe blue or yellow, right? So red, life, black, neutral, and yellow will be earth. Now, that is not to say, because it is the same copper that runs through the red wire that also runs through. Let me take you back to that so that you can see. Now you can see here we have red, black, no, red, green, and white. So let's say red is life, green is neutral, and then white is earth. Now the same copper that runs through this red is the same copper that runs through green, is the same copper that runs through white. So where you are supposed to use red as life, if you use green or white, it is going to work. It will be functional. But there is a standard that has defined that red should always carry life. And this is the reason. If I'm an electrician and I come to fix something in your office, let's say you no longer need my service, or maybe I even traveled, I left the country, and I can no longer come to help you fix. The next person that is coming as an electrician, by default, that person knows that anywhere I see red, red carries life. That is a standard. Now imagine that anybody can just use any color. I can decide to say black is my own life, red is my neutral. So it means all of those electricians that used to do like their actor and bows, that they used to put some of the wire on their tongue. The person may think black is the neutral, and the person now puts it on his tongue. That person is gone. You understand? So there are standards that has made these things so that these standards guide us on how we do things, having a safer environment, having to understand how things work. Now imagine a world without standards. Imagine a world without this requirement, a world without this requirement. You know that that's a major there'll be a major problem in the world. Now, that is to sharpen our mind. What is ISO? ISO is not a document. ISO is not a document. The document that ISO publish is what we call international standards. But ISO in itself is an organization. And because we call it ISO, do not mistake it. It is called International Organization for Standardization. International Organization for Standardization. So ISO is an organization that combines, that comes, it's just like the way we have Uber, where Uber does not really have a car, but Uber has lots of drivers. And that's how ISO is. ISO, it is people like you and I that are in ISO, right? Experts like you and I. And I know that I'm also praying and working to grow to the extent where I can also be part of the committee that designs some of these standards, right? But sometimes they usually have, what do they call it? I think open call or something, where, especially NIST does that, where you can come, they will push out a particular standard that they want to publish, they push it out to the masses, and then you can contribute. So why not do it this way? Why not do it that way? Based on your expertise, right? So ISO is a combination of experts like you and I. It's a combination of government parastatals, private entities, public entities, individuals, people that are good coming together to fix a particular problem. They come together to fix a particular problem. So you can see it is ISO is an international organization of national standard bodies from over 160 countries. So there is a combination of various people, various countries, various continents coming together to fix a problem. this is what ISO, this is what they do. ISO, we see that there is a problem in a particular domain, in a particular field of endeavor, or in a particular jurisdiction. Let me give a typical example. Maybe people have been reporting hazard in respect to containers. You know, I talked about containers. Many people have been reporting that, oh, they are hazard because the difference in container size, every company is building different sizes. ISO, we see that need, we see that gap. And then people that are experts in that regard, in that domain, that have been maybe into transportation, understanding, or they can even go to some of these companies, they bring them together as a committee, and then they come up with a standard, a written rule, and then it becomes a global standard that everybody has to work with, and then everybody has to do what, has to implement, right? So these standards are not mandatory. That's the truth. They are not mandatory, they are voluntary. However, country regulations, country requirements can mandate those standards. So for instance, in the financial institution here in Nigeria, ISO 27001 is not a mandatory standard across board in the world. However, CBN has mandated that all fintechs, all financial institutions, banks, OFIs and the likes, MFDs and co, they must implement ISO 27001. And regulatory standards supersedes any other standards or requirement. So that means they must implement it, even though it is voluntary, but they made it mandatory. So ISO is that organization, right? They see the need in the market and they respond to that need. And sometimes by the time they build a standard for that market, the standard can go across all jurisdiction. For instance, ISO 27001 is applicable to any organization because you deal with information, you deal with data, right? So, but ISO 22000 food safety management system is not applicable to all organizations. It's only applicable to organizations that deal with food, like Food Concept, like Chicken Republic, like KFC and co. It's applicable to them. So it's not applicable to your own business if you are a fintech. So the standards, they can build standards that is applicable to every field of endeavors, and sometimes it can be standard that will fix a problem in a particular domain. So the final result of ISO works are published as international standards, and that is where your ISO 27001 comes in, ISO 22301, blah blah blah, and other standards. So ISO has published over 24,000 standards since 1947. Now imagine having over 24,000 standards that is speaking to different things. There are standards in IT governance, there are standards in networking, there are standards in telecommunication, standards in food control, there are standards in quality, cybersecurity, privacy, various standards. And they've published over 24,000 standards since 1947, right? And by the time you pick up any ISO standard, just try to read through the introduction. You will see the committee that designed that standard. For instance, the ISO 27001 is designed by ISO, IEC, GTC committee, I think S27 also, that designed that particular standard. If you go to ISO 22301, it's another committee. So it is telling you that it is the people that understands those particular problem and how to solve them that ISO brings together. ISO will not come and meet you that all you understand is information security, and then they will now bring you to come and talk about food. No, except they need some requirements that speaks to security as regards food, and then they can call you. So people that you are going to see in those committees are people that can actually solve those problems and can come up with those standards. Building ISO standard can take years. So sometimes I go to their website, you will see a standard that is that the committee is currently working on. You will see when they have sent it out for review. You will see when it passes, first phase approval, second phase, third phase approval. You will see when they publish it. You will see when they downgrade it. Sometimes they downgrade standards. They feel that these standards are not needed again in the field. It's obsolete. Things have changed. For instance, ISO 27001 2013, they had to downgrade it after the wake of COVID because they understand that a lot of things have changed. Working from home opened our eyes to new threats, artificial intelligence, more privacy requirements, right? More cybersecurity requirements, and then the new standard 27001 2022 now has more controls that speaks to that threat intelligence, identity management, and co. Right. So this is basically what ISO is all about. It's an organization, then the published standard, but it is not ISO that sits solely to publish these standards. ISO has people, from different jurisdictions coming together to ensure that these standards are designed and these standards are published. Now, why should you care about ISO standards? Whether you are in GRC or not, ISO standards are very, very important. Very important. As a business, it helps you to build trust with customers. In my company, some clients will come to meet us that they want to implement a particular standard, and then we ask them, why do you want to implement? So most times they are implementing it because it is a requirement, especially for companies that are not in the financial institution, that it is not mandatory to them. There is no regulation that is making it mandatory for them to implement. So they may decide that we want to, for instance, you are a media company. You may think you don't need ISO 27001. It is when you now want to get a business from a major bank, and the business is going to what, let's say 300 million naira or more. And then they're asking you, where is your information security policy? Who is your security manager? Where is the certification that shows that you take security serious? And when we give you our information, our details, you are not going to mismanage them. It is then you understand that, oh, this is very critical and very, very important. So it builds trust with customers. People know that, okay, this organization is serious when it comes to security, or serious when it comes to food concepts or any other concept that our standard is speaking to. Right. It also improves business efficiency because ISO standards are structured. It is structured, and without structure, since we slip through the cracks, if you don't have structure in place, your business will die. If you spend hundreds of billions of dollars on that business, if you do not have structure, right, your business will die. And ISO standard helps to put those structure in place, helps you to tell you when to do something, how to do them, who should do them, and a lot of other requirements like that. It also helps you to reduce errors and risks, and then opens door to international markets. If you want to do business in, let's say, you want to do business with another organization that is outside of your jurisdiction, sometimes, in fact, most times they ask you for standards like this. Are you certified to this or that? For instance, let's say you want to start shipment and you want to start moving containers from other continent to another continent. There are standards that you must follow through, because the details of the people that are coming to pick those containers, your customers, how do you safeguard their details, right? How do you also manage security of information? Because some of those ship also, they run on internet. Some of them have their own network, right? They can be hacked, systems can be hacked, information can be stolen, and a lot of other things like that. So it opens door to international markets. When you have these standards in place, it gives them, even though you are still improving on those standards, it gives them that understanding that, okay, this person knows what he or she is doing, right? And then as individuals, they give you a global language. They give you a global language when you understand what ISO is all about. My first job in cybersecurity, I got that job because I knew what ISO. In fact, it was not I did not reply as ISO. The person asked me that, do you know what ISO is? And I said, I've read about it, the iOS. I was thinking it's the iOS model in networking, right? So I mentioned something around that, and the person was, okay, you are teachable, and that was how I got into the job, right? And some other requirements that followed through. So it gives you a global language. You understand ISO requirements. When you want to get a job and they see that this is not even about certification, even if you are not certified, and they can read from your CV that, oh, let's say for instance, you want to get a food quality control job, quality control officer, and they see that you understand ISO 22000 that talks about food safety management system, right? Or you want to get a job around cybersecurity, and they say that you understand ISO 27001, it gives them that, you know, it makes you marketable, which is the third point. It makes you marketable. They understand that, okay, this person knows more, and this person, you know, can improve our system and improve our structure. I used to say it that the next generation we are getting to now is, they'll ask you, how cyber aware are you before you get a job? Like, they really want to test your knowledge, because every organization is even moving away from physical data center, and they are going to the cloud, and they need people that understand, you know, things around that. If you are using your Google Drive, talking about the cloud, if you are using your AWS, you are using Zoom and Co. These are cloud assets, and they need you to have an understanding of how to keep information safe, secure within the organization. So it helps you to be marketable also as an individual, and then it gives structure to your work. It gives structure to your work. It helps you to structure your work, and you will see that when we get to the structure of ISO ISO standards, right? Let me get a reaction. Can everyone still hear me? Are we still following? Okay. Okay, great, great. All right. Okay. So popular ISO standards that you should know. And in brackets, you can see requirements. Now, we have requirements. We have standards that are requirements. We have standards that are guidelines. Requirements, an organization can be certified to a standard that is a requirement. So an organization cannot be certified to a standard that is a guideline, but the certification body can give them like an attestation to say, oh, we have assessed these people, and so far they are good. But when it comes to requirements, you can be certified, and that is why a company can ask you for your ISO 27001 certificate. Like, can we see your ISO 27001 certificate? Can we see your ISO 22301 certificate? So these are ISO standards that is applicable to all organizations. 27001, 22301, 20,000, 9001 is applicable to almost every organization in the world, right? Whether you are small, whether you are big, whether you are of 3 staff or 4 staff, or you have 20,000 staff, these standards are applicable to you. Now, and in this standard, if you open any of these standards that we have on the screen, we have lots of these standards, but I'm just bringing these out. These are the most popular ones. If you open a standard, right, what you will see there is shall. If you open 27001, you will see shall. And when you see shall, the verb shall is telling you that you must do it. If you want to claim conformity to that standard, there is no one way to it. You must fulfill the requirements. They are called requirements. You are required to do them if you are claiming conformance. 27001 is standard for information security, right? For organizations that, you know, feeds heavy on data and information, which is applicable to every company in the world currently. 22301 is business continuity management system. It helps organizations to put process in place to continue their business in the face of a disruption, maybe in the face of a pandemic. For instance, you will see organizations now, currently, organizations carry out a test in BCMS, exercise and test. You will see them doing tests, they are doing work from home tests. That's how effective will the business be if staff work from home. So that what happens during COVID will not happen again. A lot of business folded because they do not have a business continuity management system in place to continue their business in the face of a disruption. Hold up. Right, so that's what 22301 is all about. 9001 is quality management system. You want to have a good quality, you want to have, you know, quality service in place, good customer expectation, good customer requirements. You go for 9001. It's applicable to all business. 20001 is service management system. Service management system. This one is telling you to automate all of your processes. Now, if you go to traditional organization, for people that manage incidents, let's say, you know, those IT guys now, they can be nonchalant sometimes, and then you send a request via mail, or you send a request, maybe you have a portal, you send a request to the IT guys that, oh, your device is bad and they need to fix it. Some of them will sit down in their office like this. They will not do anything. They'll be watching movie. They're not doing anything. But you know what 20,001 did? Part of what 20,001 did is automation. In the sense that the moment you sent that request, that's automatically routed that request to somebody in that company. It will see the person that is not busy and the person that can manage that particular process, and then takes that problem to that person that manage this problem. The moment that problem gets to that person's table, there's something we call SLA, service level agreements, and OLA, operational level agreements. Then there's an OLA internally to say, if a mouse is bad, worst to, you must fix this mouse in, let's say, 30 minutes. That's the OLA. You understand? So that is already integrated into that service management system, into that tool that you're using to manage that incident or service request. So 30 minutes is counting. If that person likes, the person should be playing. If the person breaches the SLA, the system maps it that this person is this person who that breaches this SLA. And then there is performance review at the end of every month. And that's puts process in place, incident management, business. There's also a requirement under service management, which is business relationship, where there's a BRM manager that we call a business relationship manager. So the BRM manager comes to meet the whole department, comes to meet HR. HR, tell us what your problem is that we can automate. HR can tell you that we have problem with onboarding staff, that we are doing things manually. Now that BRM will go to the IT guy, the developers. This is HR's problem. Develop a product that can fix that problem. The BRM will also be the person that will interface with external customers. This application that we built for you, what are the issues? What are the things you like there? What are the things we can improve on? And that is why the person managing the service of OP, that person is a mastermind, right? The person is a mastermind because the person understands customer expectation, customer requirement. So these are various requirements under ISO 20001, right? Service management system, where you manage services within the organization. And this is also applicable, but because you need to have a service management tool, and they can be costly, service management tool like Jira, Service Desk, Manage Engine, and co. They can be costly. You will see that most organizations do not implement this thing, like except organizations that maybe they have the money to implement them. But now we have free service management tool that you can go online and get, and can still serve what you need to do without buying or paying a dime. 14,001, 45,001 are both talking about health and safety and environmental requirements. Now, if you go to where they are building, you will see that the moment you get to a particular, let's say you are building more than so and so story building, there must be scaffolds. These are requirements. It's not like they want to do it. You even see that some companies still build today without scaffolds, but they may not be issue. The day someone will die, will fall and die, it is the day that company gets into problem, because it is then they will now start counting the things that they did not do well in respect to some of these regulations and these requirements. So these are popular ISO standards that are requirements that an organization can be certified to, and they use the verb shall. Now, these are other popular ISO standards, but these ones we call them guidelines. We have lots of these ones also, but we call them guidelines. You as an organization cannot be certified to this, but you can get an attestation from the government to say, oh, I said from the government, from the certification body, or maybe from any consultant, say yes, they've been assessed and they are doing fine in respect to this guideline. So 27,017 is guideline for cloud security, right? So if you had implemented 27,001, which is a requirement, this guideline is now saying integrate some of the things you find here into your already existing requirements and standard. Now, in these guidelines that we have on the screen here, what you are going to see there is should. So should is saying it is permissible in the sense that you can choose to do it however you want to do it. Just ensure that you achieve what the standard wants you to achieve. So it is like a suggestion. Okay, do it this way. You can do it this way, or do it your own way. But when you are doing it your way, make sure it follows best practice, and make sure it is it follows standards also. We have ISO 31000. This is guideline for risk management for organizations that want to implement and establish an enterprise risk management. This is not just information security. Enterprise 27001 only focuses is guideline for information security, whilst 31000 is guideline for enterprise risk management, whether it's credit risk, whether it's liquidity risk, whether it's information security, technological risk, any other risk, management risk, and whatever risk that you have within the organization. And if you have ISO 27032, these are guidelines for cybersecurity. It is also not a standard. You can choose to do it the way they have documented it, or do it however you can do it, but ensure that you fulfill the requirement, if you fulfill best practices. And so these are typical examples of requirements and guidelines that we have within ISO. Now, for every ISO standards, virtually almost ISO standards, this is the structure they follow. Clause 1 to clause 10. But for those that are familiar with ISO standard, you will know that it starts from clause 4. I'll tell you why. Clause 1 is scope. Clause 2 is normative reference. Clause 3 is terms and definitions. Now, you know when you buy a novel, that novel contains abstracts, contains table of content, contains this, contains that, acknowledgements, and co. That's basically what clause 1 to 3 is all about. It's just introduction. The actual chapter starts from chapter 1. In respect to ISO, the actual chapter starts from chapter 4. And you see that I mapped out chapter 4 to 10. That is clause 4. We call them clauses, management clauses. Clauses 4 to 10 are requirements. And that is where you will start saying shall, which means you must do them. Clause 4 is context of the organization. This is where you first, because before you implement any ISO standard, you need to understand the business that you want to implement it for. You don't just jump into implementing ISO standard for the business, for any organization. There are different contexts. The company that is selling, that is producing food, when they want to implement ISO 27001, their context is different from a fintech. The context of a fintech is different from the context of a school. So even though it is the same standard, but the way you will implement it differs for each of them. For instance, there is a subclause in clause 4.1. We have 4 subclauses under clause 4. There's a clause in clause 4, which is clause 4.2, interested parties. Now, interested parties to a school can be, let's say, NABTEB, can be WAEC, can be JAMB. Those are interested parties. Interested parties to a fintech, there's nothing that concerns a fintech and WAEC, or a fintech and JAMB, or a fintech and let's say NAFDAC. But a food company, some of their interested parties will be NAFDAC, right? So understanding the context of the organization. Leadership, clause 5. By the time you are done understanding the context of the organization, you identify their internal and external issues. You identify their interested parties and their requirements. You understand the scope in which that management system, that standard you want to implement will cover, right? You go on to leadership. Leadership is where management now comes in, right? To control, to commit to that standard that you want to implement within the organization, right? So management put policies in place, management put resources in place, management appoints relevant rules, because management cannot do everything. So they appoint relevant rules and responsibilities to ensure that that standard is well implemented and followed within the organization. By the time you are done with leadership, right, you go on to planning. You plan, right? You put processes in place. You understand the risks and opportunities in managing that particular standard, right? And that business, the organization in itself. And then you go on to support in terms of finance, support in terms of relevant people, support in terms of competence of the people that we manage the implementation or auditing of that standard within the organization. And then it goes on to operation. Everything that you've been building, from context to leadership to planning to support, the controls, the processes, it is in clause 8, you start operating them, ensuring that they work. So you operate, you do it, right? I'm still going to show us the PDCA cycle for the ISO standard. So that is where the do comes in. You operate it. After operating, what do? You carry out performance evaluation. So performance evaluation, you evaluate what you have done, and then based on the findings, you go on to continual improvement, improve on that process. Now let me use a typical, let me use a typical business, right? Okay, let's use a car brand. A car brand, let's start with context of the car brand. The first thing is that the car brand understands that there's a demand for electric vehicles, right? And then maybe there are rising fuel prices also, maybe there are innovations also from competitors, and they also need, that's the context of the organization. And that feeds into internal and external issues, right? Things that will influence what they want to do. So I want to use a typical business model to explain how ISO standards are being implemented. Now, once you have done that, your interested parties in that car company will be the people, the customers. The customers want, safe, reliable, fuel efficient cars, right? They want regulators also are interested parties, right? Because just like Volkswagen in the last training that went to cheat the emission test, if you do anything like that, it can push you out of business. So the regulators are also your interested parties. It's also part of understanding the context of the organization, and then you see how you can fulfill the requirements of those interested parties before you go on. And the leadership is the car brand now puts in relevant people, maybe head of IT, head of products, head of projects, QA person. All of these people will come together, put relevant roles in place to ensure that those set of cars are built and designed, and to ensure that they follow best practices. And then they plan for risks and opportunities that can arise from that development. They support clause 7, that development in terms of more resources. Maybe they need somebody that has more understanding on how to build electrical vehicles, how to make some fittings, right? Competence also, they can decide to send somebody to go and learn more within the business. By the time they are done with that support, they go to operation. Operation is now them pushing that car. They push that car outside. They tell you, they sell the car to you and I, to customers, sell it to everybody. They started operating what they have been planning, what they've been building from beginning. After operation, they do what we call performance evaluation. Performance evaluation can be them now sending out, you see people giving feedback. Say, oh, this car does not make sense. Oh, this car makes sense. These are the things that makes it make sense. And that. So from that evaluation, right, that feedback also, evaluation from internal assessment also, plus 9.2 in performance evaluation is internal audit, internal assessment. They can see that, oh, we can improve on this. Evaluation from monitoring, measurement, analysis of how that vehicle is being, maybe how people are talking about that vehicle and other things. It's also part of it. Evaluation for management review. Management can now review what has been done so far, right? The car brand that has been built, the amount they have made over time, right? And then there's continual improvement, because during performance evaluation, they can see that, oh, so and so person mentioned that a particular part of this car is not good. Oh, we can make a change to this design, we can do this. And then that fits into clause 10, continual improvement. So this is a typical way of how ISO standards are structured, clause 4 to 10. Sometimes the subclauses can differ. Let's say, for instance, in ISO 20001, the subclauses are up to 6. Clause 7 has 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6. But 27001, 22301, they have clause 7.1 up to 7.5. So apart from those little difference in subclauses, this is the structure of the ISO standard, clause 4 to 10. And that is why it is easy if you are implementing more than one ISO standard in an organization, you can integrate their requirements together, right? Because it is the same context. You can integrate their context, you can integrate their leadership, you can integrate their planning, you can integrate their supports, and every other thing that you can integrate within the management clauses. Some peculiar cases also are some standards have annexes. For instance, ISO 27001 have annex controls, right? While some standards do not have annexes, like 2301, 20000, 9001, right? These standards do not have annex controls, right? So the structure of the standard of all ISO standards also follow what we call a PDCA cycle or cycle, or what we call a Deming cycle. So it follows what we call the plan, do, check, act approach. Your clause 4 to 7 is where you plan to, you establish the ISMS, you establish the information security management system. Your clause 8 is where you do. After establishment, you do it just like I explained. From that car, you start selling the car. That's where you do. You operate what you have been planning. Your clause 9 is check. That is where you carry out performance evaluation. You monitor and review what has been done. So ignore ISMS. Ignore ISMS. I just picked up this picture. So this is applicable to every standard. And then your clause 10 is where you act on what you have checked, right? You improve, you maintain, you improve on what you have checked. And you can see that it's a cycle. It's a cycle. It keeps going. It never stops. It's an improvement process, right? And this is applicable to all ISO standards. Now, how can you implement ISO standard? Number one, understand the standard. Something that sets me apart, right, is that before I implement any ISO standard, I can take a long period of time to learn and study that standard. You need to know what that standard is saying, what the standard is asking you. What 27001 is telling you to do is different from what 22301 is telling you to do. So you need to understand that standard, know what it's saying, then do a gap analysis. So a gap analysis is when you want to implement it for a business or an organization, you analyze to see what they have in place. You don't just go straight to implement. You check what they have on ground based on the requirement of the standard. It will help you to be able to identify the gaps and things that you need to do. So it's a quick win for you. In fact, you solve 80% of your problem if you carry out a gap analysis. Then get management support. This one is needed. For you, before you implement anything in any organization, management has to know about it. There must be management support in place. There must be buy-in, right? There must be buy-in from management, right? Management support in place, and then plan the implementation. So timeline, resources, responsibilities, put them in place when you want to implement. Train relevant people. Clause 7 supports. 7.2 under support, it's a subclause under support, talks about competence. Because if I am coming as an external auditor to audit your company, and the person implementing ISO 27001 for you is not certified, I will flag it as a major non-conformity, and I will not recommend you for certification as an organization. So you need to train your people to understand their roles. The IT person within your organization, did they understand their role? Are they trained? Your HR person, did they understand their role? Are they trained also? And you need to document what you do. I was in an audit last week, and the person was telling me that we did it. I know that you did it. You are telling me you did it, but let me see it. If you don't document, it means it does not exist, right? You need to document what you do, right, in implementation. Then run the system, do what you say you will do, run it, operate it, right, and then audit and improve, monitor it, audit and improve, and then you can go for certification. This is optional. It's optional. As a business, let's say for instance, you sell mobile devices. Even though you might be looking at your business that my business is small, I'm just selling laptops and desktop. You can integrate some of these things. When you are sending invoice to a client, and on your invoice, you have it there stated that your details are safeguarded based on our privacy policy. And then the person can click on that link and you can take them to where you have your privacy policy. Do you think people will not want to do business with you? Even though you are not certified as an organization, because maybe you cannot pay for the certification, but you have the process in place. Understand? So you may necessarily not go for certification if it is not mandatory to you in some cases. Mandatory in the sense that maybe some of your customers are requiring and you see the need because you are making a lot of money and see the need to do it, right? You can integrate these things in your requirements. I remember when I was still selling some of my books, I had to put it to a stop because of some things, right? I have a privacy policy for the books I'm selling, for the novels I'm selling. I have a privacy policy because when I want to get, and I tell people that, so we share, I let them know that we share your details with our vendor. The only vendor we share your detail with are the people that are going to deliver your novel to you, because we need to share your house address and we need to share your name, also your phone number with them. So it was transparent, right? And I'm not even I do not have NDPA in place, Nigeria Data Protection Act in place, but I have a requirement, a control. These are things that standards, understanding these standards do to you, and it helps you to improve your business and improve your processes. Common myths about ISO. ISO is only for big companies. Lucy mentioned something that is applicable to all organizations, right? So ISO is only for big companies is very wrong. ISO is applicable to any company. In fact, I have audited companies of 2, 3, 4 staff before. So it's for companies, whether you are small, whether you are big. ISO is just about documents. No. Documents helps you to have structured process in place. However, there has to be implementation of what you have documented. So ISO is beyond documents. Technical implementation, operational implementation, implementation around people, relevant controls also. You must be certified to use ISO. No, just as I mentioned, as an organization, you do not need to be certified to use ISO. You can use that process and build your organization, even though you are not certified, right? So it is not a must for you to be certified. Also, ISO is for anyone who wants to work smarter and safer. Yes, fantastic. If you want to work smarter, you want to work safer, you want to have a good business, ISO is applicable and ISO is for you. And lastly, before we go to question and answer session, start small. Pick one area to improve, right? If you want to learn ISO, you can start with, I used to tell people, start with ISO 27001. It's a very, very good standard. You know, teach you about security, and it's applicable across any company, whether what you are selling is maybe you are in food business, maybe you are in security business, maybe you are in fintech space, whatever space you are, 27001 is good. So you can start small, pick one area within the ISO, learn it, right? Also learn from others. There are free resources just like this. This is a free resource for you. Learn from others. Focus on value, not just the certificate. For every certificate I have, I should have 16, 17 certificates currently. I can say something about all of those certificates, and I have done something around all of those certificates. COBIT, I've done something around IT governance. Lead application security auditor, lead application security implementer, I have done things around them. So I can say things about them. So do not just only go for certificates, focus on value, learn it also, and then keep it practical. Don't overcomplicate it, right? If you are implementing ISO within your organization, don't just go online and carry templates and start using it. No, streamline that template to what is applicable to your business. Just keep it practical, keep it simple. You don't necessarily have, sometimes I audit some companies and their policy has 5, 10 pages, and in all of those 5, 10 pages, what is actually applicable to them may not be more than 1 page. There is no part of the standard that says you must have more than 1 page policy. It's not to make document look plenty and fine. It's to practicalize, and you are doing what that document is saying you should do. So if I come to audit you and your policy is just 3 lines, and that 3 lines is what I see in your company that reflects your commitment and what you are doing in your company, why not? I will give you more preference than a company that has a policy of 30 pages and people do not even understand what it is saying. It does not really make sense to them, right? So and I'll leave you with, you don't have to be a big organization to do big things. You just need the right standards, right? And the right standards are going to put structures in place, put relevant controls in place, help you to be safe in business, and then also guide you. As an individual also, it improves your understanding, helps you to also to be marketable, just as it was mentioned, right? I hope we're able to gain one or two things today. If we have questions, I'll take our questions and we can call it a day. If you have questions, so if you have questions, you can raise your hand. We'll unmute mics now. Please, unless we tell you to speak, do not speak. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand and then be able to ask your question. Okay. All right. Esther Ogechi.
Good day, Mr. Kainde. Thank you so much for the class and the lessons and the presentation. I didn't join early, but I do have a little bit of knowledge regarding ISO standards and all of that. So, but my question is, I mean, we get that most of the standards, we have like the official documents where you have to, go and read and understand the requirements. But what I find hard is trying to interpret that into actual implementation, where you go from not just knowing the requirements to actually now implementing those requirements for the organizations. And that is where my confusion used to come in, because I mean, you can read and understand, but implementation might be it might be complex more than, what the standard says. Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's a very good note. And to tell you that your fears are valid, me too. Sometimes there are some standards that I don't understand firsthand. That's the truth. Understand? There are standards there are lots of standards that if I close my eyes, I can implement them without opening my eyes. I know them like the back of my hand, right? And I can call out requirements from my head. It's not like I cram it, but I've done it over time. That's where it comes in. Now, what happened was the first standard I implemented when I started my career is ISO 27001, and I learned from someone. So, and that is why going for training is important also. You go for, when I say training, you go for training from people that have done it, not people that will just come and read book for you, people that have done it, right? And then in organizations also, what organizations do also is that their first implementation, first 1 or 2 implementation, they bring in a consultant that knows it. Now, this consultant will do it, and you are watching how the consultant is doing it. That is how to learn. Some implementations can be very clear. From reading it, you can do it. But some implementation, you need somebody to handhold you. Tell you that, do it this way. Or start from here, follow it this way, and learn. That is the best way to learn. Actually, you see someone doing it, right? And sometimes you may not see someone doing it. For instance, I have implemented audited standards that nobody has done it. I've not seen anybody do it, but because of the understanding of the previous ones I have done, it is easy for me to follow through. And if the moment I do it once, twice, the first time I will struggle to do it. The second time I'm doing it, I am better. The third time, it is nothing anymore. It is now part of the standards that I know that I can run with, right? So that aspect of implementation, you need somebody that actually knows it to support you in most cases, or actually knows it to run you through, to guide you on how to do it. I've had mentees that get job in and out of the country, and then some of them reach out sometimes. My boss, I don't get this job. What are we going to do about it? Okay, start from here. Do this, do that, and then I support them. I follow them through. Okay, first start with meeting with management. Understand everybody in the company. Once you are done with that, okay, go to gap assessment. Carry out the assessment like this. Follow it this way. Once you are done with gap assessment, okay, report the gaps that you have identified. Now that you have reported, tell management the things you need, collect this, meet with HR. So the moment the person is hand-holding you, and then you are going like that, by the time the person hand-holds you for the first, the second one that you have done for your company, you are good to go now. You are fine. Understand? You can run with it. Now, you may not run at the pace of the person training you. You can even run better than the person training you. Understand? So it can be both ways, and that is where implementation comes in. Right. So I hope that's able to answer your question. So any more question?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Any other question?
Um, hi, hello. Please, I would like to ask, based on the training you are planning to do, is it going to be like hands-on experience, like practical experience, just the same as what you are doing now? Because I'm actually interested. Of course, I've read ISO 27000, I've watched videos and everything, but I've not done the hands-on, the implementation of ISO 27000 or any of the standards. So the training you want to have, is it practical? Like, okay, we'll be implementing ISO 27001 like a real life scenario, like what you do in your day-to-day in the organization. So I just want to know. Thank you.
Okay. Adiola, are you on the group? Are you on the free GRC group?
Yeah, I'm there. Yes.
Okay. So we do free trainings, right? As the spirit leads. We can, for instance, I remember last year I trained, I think, over 1,000 people. Olumayowa called me to, support in carrying out a training. It was was it not 4 weeks intensive training like that, where we went deep into ISO 27001, even though it is not, what's it called? It is not handsome, but yeah, we went deep to see how things are being done, right? So just stay on the group. If you're on the group now, you can, some of you drop a chat on the group now. Olaide will drop a chat. So just message Olaide on the group and ensure that you stay on the group also, right? So that if there are opportunities, right, we can always take you through those opportunities and you can always see them. In fact, the first training we did, the first free training, I wanted to dissolve the group. People came to my DM that no, we should not dissolve it to that. And I thought about it that okay, you can have this training maybe twice in a quarter or every month if possible, right? Can be 2-3 hours and you can run with it. So whatever information that you need as regards that, Olaide is going to support you with that. Right. Do we have any other question? Any question? Any other question? Okay, we have Kunle Aregbeshola.
Hi, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Although I came very late, and a lot of it I did not meet, and I noticed that this call is being recorded. Please, will a copy be made available for us?
Yes. So yeah, go on.
Okay, and the group you were talking about, is it the GRC cohort group?
No.
Or is there any other
No. There's a free GRC group, right? So, but whatever group that you belong to, be rest assured that information is going to touch you. Information will go around. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, this video will be uploaded today on my YouTube page. You can rewatch. You can also share it on your LinkedIn with people that you know that would like to get it. Also, if you did not watch the free GRC training, go and watch that. It's going to also complement what you have learned here today. Go and watch that free GRC training. It's also meant to be very, very important also. Right. So yeah, Victor Patrick.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Kendi. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. So I don't know if my question is somehow out of context. So let's say you literally passed the what's it called, as an individual, you've passed the requirements to be certified in ISO 27001, and you are being employed to a company, to an organization as the ISMS manager, but you don't really like, you don't have a clear understanding on how to go about this process. What would you give as an advice to that person?
Okay, you've gone through the training, you are
Yes,
certified, but you don't
yes,
have an understanding as to how to go through the process,
yes.
right?
To implement for the organization. Okay, as an ISMS manager, what the role you'd have to play as the ISMS manager in the organization?
Yeah. So that is almost the same question the first person asked. I forgot the name, right? That she asked. Right. So what I used to tell people is that the moment you pass the exam, very fantastic. Go on to pursue mastery in knowing this thing so that you can defend your certificate. Now, clause 7.2 also, I love to cite the standard. Clause 7.2, competence. There is a part in clause 7.2 competence. If you read it downwards, it says the organization should ensure that um, its people attain competence by either mentoring or employing somebody that understands it or sending them for training, right? And mentoring also comes in place of consultants. So if you as a company, you know that this person is not let's say for instance, the person is not even, what's it called? The person is, maybe the person is just an IT person, do not even understand this information security requirements. You know that you need to get a consultant, somebody that can support that implementation, or somebody that can train that person to ensure that that is being done. You understand? Train people within the business, right? So if you had studied, you also need, that's where management buying also comes in, top management buying. If you had studied and then you see that, oh, there are things that you do not understand, can reach out to management, let them see the need as to why you need to get a consultant, or as to why you need to get somebody to support that implementation right within your organization, and then that can help you uh, drive it. So the moment you have that understanding, or maybe within your company also, there is somebody that has implemented it before, and then that person can mentor or support you. This one is not even about position. The person can be, maybe in terms of hierarchy, the person is lower or higher than you. It's not relevant. You understand? The person can mentor you, and the person can support you. Right. So I hope that answers your question. So implementation can be rigorous sometimes, right? But it is achievable. You can do it. It's, in fact, when you do it the first time, the second time, you see that it's nothing did this thing. You are just scared for nothing. Do you understand? So I hope that answers your question, Victor. Also, we have the group chats and the YouTube channel. On the chat box, check the chat box, you see the YouTube channel. You have the group chat also there. You can join whenever we have free trainings like this. I don't think we are going to have any free training in hold on, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So this is August. Okay, we can have in August. This is August, but I don't think we are going to have in September, because September there's an initiative that I am part of. We carry out quarterly cybersecurity awareness, and the next one is coming up in September, which is the last Saturday of every quarter. Right, so we'll be there. We'll also share with you to join. Also share it. This one is going to focus on human resource, security in human resource. Right, so you want to share with your HR, share with your people. You too, you need to join to see how they need to safeguard your information also. Right, so but we should have another training this month, just one Saturday, just the last Saturday also. Let's see how it goes. So I'll speak to my team, whatever comes to mind. So do we have any other question before we call it a day? Any other question? Anything that needs clarity? Any question? Yeah, Olarotimi.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Olarotimi.
Okay, we've been hearing about the ISO standard from the beginning. Also, this is what I want to ask for someone that wants to, kickstart his career in cybersecurity. What are the core trainings that the person needs, or certifications, or mentoring, kind of?
Okay, let me refer you. This question you asked now, we spent 2 hours talking about this thing, and that's the last training we had. So just follow the charts, go to the YouTube page and watch that video. You are going to gain clarity. That's one I'm sure of. You will understand the different domains in cybersecurity, and then you will understand GRC, right? And you will appreciate this training more when you watch that video, right? Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll do that. YouTube channel, right?
Yes. You will see it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Simon Blaze.
All right. Thank you very much for the privilege to be here and the training so far. So you said ISO is for any business at all. So I'm wondering, how can a business who is involved in building get started with iOS? Like, you said you don't even need the certification at the moment. You just have to follow due processes. Then you work with the processes and everything in ISO. And you said it's going to boost marketing and all those kind of stuff. So I want to know, how do we kickstart for a business who is not even in cybersecurity but in building aspects? Thank you.
Okay, very good. Very good question. Right. Now, the reason why I started with giving those typical example that are even outside ISO is because we need to know that for every jurisdiction you belong to, there is a standard. As a builder, you know the standard that you need to follow. It may not be ISO, but I know ISO has a standard that speaks to building, right? Which you can research also. You can research on. But as a builder, you know there are standards. There are things. I wish my team brother is on this call. He's a real estate person. I know he can, speak to 1 or 2 things around that. Do you understand? So as a builder, there are standards that you know you must follow. As a builder, they are going to test the soil. They are going to do this. The materials you are going to use, security controls that need to be in place also. You have to do that. Now let's give another example. Let's say you are what's it called? You are a contractor. People give you money to build apartments for them, or to erect offices for them. And then as a contractor, you are the one that will bring in the engineer, you bring in the laborers, people that are going to work and are going to. I know that some of these laborers, some of them, they are thieves. They steal on sites. Now, there is a control in information security and a 6.1 that talks about screening. Screening is you are evaluating people before they start doing business with you. Before you bring an engineer, you've carried out background checks and evaluation of that person's process. Like the person, you've collected reference from that person. Before anybody works on your site, collected reference from such people. So this is just a typical example, right? So by the time you are pitching a proposal to a company, let's say a bank or a business that you want to build for, you are pitching and you are telling them that you have integrated requirements of security requirements using best practice standard like ISO 27001. You have integrated quality requirements, and you are speaking to that, and they are asking you that, okay, what are the security requirements that you have in place? And so you evaluate these, you do this, you do that in terms of quality, you carry out this, you follow up with this, and then they're like, okay, see, narrating the chop, let me just use paging first. Narrating the chop business with that, you fit talk, and then they can see something that you said you are going to do, and then do it when you mentioned that you can do it, you are going to do it, try to do it, right? So even though you are not certified to 27,001, you understand, you can do it. Part of 27,001, context of the organization, you can also talk about it, that you don't just go straight into building for any business. You need to understand their context, because you will see that most businesses, they have like some kind of structures that they have. You cannot build a bank like a house. So you need to understand their context. You need to understand, scope and a lot of other things also, right? So this is just a typical example. You will see requirements within. So okay, somebody said ISO 15392. Let me quickly Google it and see what it is speaking to. ISO 15392. Okay, sustainability in buildings. You can see sustainability in building construction. Now, if you read this standard, let me see. Now, this is general principle. This is not a requirement. Can you see? This is not even a requirement. You don't need to be certified to this. It's just a principle. So now, if you apply this principle to your business and you put it as part of your proposal, you are making wave. It gives you edge than any other person. You understand? So there are things like that. Business continuity, right? Let's say, for instance, you let's say for some real estate companies that collect money from clients, from customers, and then they use those money to invest. You can let them know that you have a business continuity process in place. There's a money you have in the bank that even though if you lose money in some investment that you do, you can always pay your clients back. So things that you used to win contracts and co. Right. So that's just to run around. I'm not really a building person. I just learn from my brother once in a while. But these are some of the things that I feel and I understand. Privacy policy also, because the person that wants to give you their this thing to build, there's every possibility we meet with their management. They will give you some names, the location, the name of the business. So you manage them in accordance with your privacy policy. You understand? You don't share it with third parties. This is how you do, this is how you do, and these are things that give you edge, right? So I hope that is able to answer your question. Do we have any more question before we call it a day? Any more question or concerns? Well, we have the group chat. The group chat is open anytime, right? Yes, hey, even building 14,001. I missed out on that. 40,001 and 45,001 is very, very much applicable to building also in terms of safety precautions and requirements that need to be in place. So because if you are building, right, you need to also factor in emergency exits, right? So these are some of the conversations you have, then gives you edge over that. So the group is open for us to always ask questions. When people come to my DM and ask questions, sometimes I tell them go and drop it on the group so that every other person can see. No stupid question. If you have questions, drop it on the group. We answer the question, and sometimes there are opportunities that I also see, job opportunities, some information I also share on the group, and then we all can run with it, right? So I'll say thank you to everyone for joining this training. You can talk about this training on your LinkedIn page. We'll finish up the uploading before the end of today, and then we'll share the recording on the group. We'll share the recording so that you can rewatch. You can also share what you've learned and then how it impact on you also, right? So thank you everyone once more for joining this training. We'll take the conversation back to the group chats. Please enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you also to my organizer, Oluwaseyi, and sorry, let me call Olaide first before Olaide fights me. So Olaide and Oluwaseyi also for ensuring that this happens, right? So bye everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.